Alright, also look, welcome back to the channel, and guess what? It's fight week, and UFC 310 is going down this weekend live at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada, with the main event featuring the former 135-pound rising champion making his UFC debut, the highly regarded Asakura, facing off against the current UFC undisputed flyweight champion of the world, Alexandre Pantoja. And in this video, we're going to be going over my main card breakdown, analysis, as well as predictions on UFC 310's main card, as well as also speed running through my early prelim as well as regular prelim predictions as well. So with that being said, without further ado, let's get right in to the video. And if you're new to the channel, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share so you can help me reach 1,500 subscribers by May. I'll deeply appreciate you. And make sure you join the official UFC Discord, link in the description. Alright, so look, I'm gonna be starting off this video a little different this time around. I'm going to be speed running through my early prelims as well as regular prelims, and then later getting into more detailed breakdowns once we've reached the main card. Now that that's understood, let's begin with the curtain jerker. The first fight of the night, Kennedy Nzechukwu versus Lucas Brzeski. And I'm going to go with my boy, Kennedy Nzechukwu, by second round TKO. Next up on the card, we've got a bout between the crafty old vet himself, Clay Guida, versus Chase Hooper. And I'm going to be taking my guy, Chase Hooper, by unanimous decision. Next up on the card, we've got Michael Chiesa versus Max Griffin. And I'm going to be going with Max Griffin by second round TKO. Next up on the card, we've got a bout between Cody Durden versus Joshua Van. And I'm going to be going with my boy, Joshua Van, by third round KO over Cody Durden. Next up, we've got the fight that should have been on UFC 309 a few weeks back. That being Chris Weidman versus Eric Anders. And I'm going to be going with Eric Anders by unanimous decision over Chris Weidman. Now, switching over to the regular prelims, we're going to be starting off with a bout between Randy Brown versus Brian Battle. And I'm going to be going with Brian Battle by third round TKO or unanimous decision over Randy Brown. Now, for this fight, depending on how it's done, the winner can potentially skip the featherweight line for #1 contendership after Ilia El Matador dispatches of Alexander Volkanovski sometime in early 2025. And it's a bout between Aljamain Sterling versus Movsar Evloev. And to be frank, I really do see this ending up either one or two ways. Either we see both of them respect each other's ground games and keep this a standing battle on the feet, Colby v. Marty style, or it can be the typical wrestle-fuck snooze fest, which is probably the most likely option because both of them suck on the feet, and that's probably why they got bumped right down to the prelims. Either way, I've got Movsar Evloev getting it done against Aljamain Sterling by unanimous decision. Next up on the card, we've got Vicente Luque versus Themba Gorimbo. And I'm going to be taking Themba Gorimbo, getting it done against Vicente Luque by unanimous decision. Now, for the last fight on the regular prelims, we've got a bout between Anthony Lionheart Smith versus Dominic the Goat Slayer Reyes. And for this fight, I'm going to be taking my guy, Dominic Reyes, by unanimous decision. On paper, though, by the way, on paper. And now for the main card. And we've got a featherweight curtain jerker bout between Nate the Train Landwehr going up against Choi. And look, y'all, both of these guys are very well known for their relentless pressure, and I really do think that that sets up an absolute banger of a matchup. And neither of these guys are gonna be backing down, and I'm already calling a barn burner brawl if all goes according to plan. And you see, while they're both really tough, I'm going to be leaning toward Choi to get it done against Nate the Train Landwehr. And you see, I do think that the edge here lies in Choi's precision and his danger as a striker. And yes, Nate the Train does have a solid wrestling background, and Choi's takedown defense isn't necessarily stellar, but Nate the Train has shown on multiple occasions that he's more focused on entertaining the crowd than grinding out safe wins. And this fight is kind of hyped up to be a potential barn burner, and Nate the Train is likely to lean into that type of vibe. That means less wrestling and more striking exchanges on the feet, where Choi's accuracy as well as timing will most definitely shine. That is why, for my prediction, I'm going with Choi by second to third round TKO. Next, we've got Thug Nasty Bryce Mitchell taking on Gracie. And look, y'all, this matchup does seem to be a little bit one-sided, but I am picking Bryce Mitchell to have his way with Gracie. Gracie is returning from a 1.5 year long layoff and is on a 2-fight skid, yet somehow he finds himself matched up against a ranked opponent for some reason. I do think that Bryce Mitchell does have all the tools he needs in order to dominate here. His wrestling is elite, and he's got some seriously underrated hands on the feet, but that tends to go unnoticed because he's really only gone against the best strikers in his division, that being Ilia El Matador Topuria and Josh Emmett. Crone, on the other hand, is arguably one of the weakest strikers in the entire UFC, and while his grappling pedigree is undeniable, I mean, he is a Gracie, Bryce Mitchell can easily neutralize that with his top-tier wrestling as well as ground control, and I honestly think that Bryce Mitchell could out-wrestle Crone if he honestly wants to, but he probably won't even need to rely on that. But at the end of the day, this is a perfect rebound fight for Bryce Mitchell after his brutal flatline KO loss against Josh Emmett at UFC 296. But with that being said, I'm going to be predicting a third round TKO for Bryce Mitchell against Gracie. Now for the featured fight of the night, where we've got a rematch between Gane and Alexander Volkov. And look, y'all, Alexander Volkov has looked absolutely fantastic recently and is now riding on a 4-fight winning streak as well as showing some significant improvements in his game. In fact, I'd argue that Volkov has developed a lot more since their last encounter than Gane has. Despite that fact, though, I am still going to go with Gane taking the dub on this one. I just think that the gap in the striking department is just way too vast, and when you look at it, Gane is just a smaller but better version of Alexander Volkov everywhere. Whether it be his speed, his footwork, or his ability to counter effectively, they will all frustrate Alexander Volkov throughout this 15-minute fight. And if Volkov tries to push forward aggressively, I think that Gane will beat him to the punch every single time. Now, when we talk about takedowns, even if he mixes in a few, I don't think that there'll be enough in order to win rounds. And I just think that Gane's precision as well as his control should be enough in order to secure him a pretty decisive decision win over Alexander Volkov. And now for the co-main event of the evening. And we've got two of the best current undefeated prospects in the entire organization currently. The 18-0 wrestling phenom, as well as the boogeyman of the welterweight division, Shavkat, the Nomad Rakhmonov, taking on the 15-0 striking maestro, Machado, Garry, for the #1 contendership in order to face the undisputed welterweight champion, Bilal, remember the eyeball, once he makes his return in the first quarter of 2025. And if you haven't already, I highly recommend you check out my super detailed breakdown as well as analysis video on this fight, because in that video I break down step by step what I think both Shavkat as well as Garry's strength and weaknesses are heading into this bout, as well as what certain implications really mean and how they impact the layout of their 5-round co-main event. It's a really informative video where I go in depth, so I highly recommend you watch it for a more thorough breakdown. But to basically sum everything up in my prediction, I'm going with Shavkat Rakhmonov on this one. I think Shavkat's all-around skill set as well as his ability to adapt just hits all the targets for me in this matchup. And look, Garry is an excellent striker and will definitely cause Shavkat Rakhmonov some problems on the feet, especially early on. And I think that his speed, his range, as well as his precision could make things super difficult for Shavkat in the striking exchanges. However, Shavkat's relentless pressure, durability, and the grappling edge are most likely to take over as the fight goes on. Especially in a 5-round bout where I think that Shavkat Rakhmonov has more time to wear down Garry, slow down his movements, and drag the fight into areas where he clearly has the advantage, especially in the grappling and the clinch exchanges. And while I do believe that Garry may have some moments of success, I do think that at the end of the day, Shavkat Rakhmonov's ability to push the pace and keep coming forward will most likely wear Garry out in the later rounds. That is why I've got Shavkat Rakhmonov by unanimous decision against Ian Machado Garry. And now for the main event of the evening. We've got the undisputed flyweight champion of the world, Alexandre Pantoja, defending his flyweight title against Kai Asakura, who is making his UFC debut after being a dominant 135-pound champion in Rizin. And look, after doing some close tape study on the cat, it's apparent that Kai Asakura is going to be a very dangerous opponent for Alexandre Pantoja, no doubt. I just think that Pantoja's experience as well as his well-rounded skill set will prove to be a little too much for the UFC debutant. I think Alexandre Pantoja's ability to mix in his striking and his grappling effectively should allow him to take control early. I think he'll use his striking to set up the takedowns and then lean heavily on his wrestling, where Kai Asakura is far less tested. But as we all know, as the fight goes on, Alexandre Pantoja's technique tends to get very sloppy, which could open up some opportunities for Kai Asakura to capitalize on with some counters or some big shots. However, the early grappling exchanges will likely tire Asakura out, subsequently dulling his power as well as his explosiveness as the fight progresses. Not to mention some of Asakura's most dangerous weapons, like the soccer kicks and the head stomps, are illegal in the UFC, so his overall threat level should be reduced. But at the end of the day, while it would be a breath of fresh air for Kai Asakura to take the dub in this fight, and I know it would put a smile on a lot of guys' faces like Manel Kape and Brandon Moreno, as well as Brandon Royval if he does, I do think that Alexandre Pantoja's grappling and his experience will be enough in order to secure him the victory. That is why I've got Alexandre Pantoja beating Kai Asakura by 3rd round submission. But that's all I've got to say for this video. Let me know in the comment section below. What do you guys think of UFC 310, and who do you guys have for both the co-main event and the main event? For the co-main, Shavkat Rakhmonov or Ian Machado Garry? And then for the main, Alexandre Pantoja or Kai Asakura? Let me know in the comment section below. But that about wraps up the video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.